Good morning. My name is Chris Cody. I own and operate Chris Cody Business Photography in Hampton, New Hampshire. And I'm doing a series of videos about photography, but geared towards the client. And the reason I decided to do that is because, well, a couple things. Most likely, if you've found this on this YouTube channel, then you are a client of mine or prospective client of mine, or you're just possibly interested in working with me. And you want to find out more about the process, me or the business, or just how this sort of works. And I've noticed there's not a lot of videos of this sort on YouTube or on the internet in general. Mostly you're going to find, when it comes to photography videos, obviously videos that are geared towards photographers and becoming a photographer, starting a business. That doesn't necessarily relate to the client side of things. In this video, I sort of wanted to talk about hiring a photographer and why you may not want to hire someone who is just starting out, maybe an amateur / pro, and some signs that you may have. I'll first say that there is definitely a time and a place to have your friend or your family member or a coworker do a simple photography job for you. If you have a particular look that lines up with kind of snapshot photography, that may be fine. But when you start getting into needing consistent work, or you have a very particular vision, and you need someone that is going to be dependable time and again, you may want to think about working with a professional. Because it's not just a task to be sort of delegated to somebody else because you don't have the time to do it or can't do it. It is a totally separate part of your vision that sort of works into your business aesthetic, business look, all of that as a whole. Skill and vision are important. And the other thing is, don't necessarily be won over by the fancy camera. Someone will say, well, I got this new really nice camera, and it's very easy to do that because cameras are pretty expensive. But a camera is really, essentially it's a conduit for interpreting what a lens sees and what an operator does in setting that lens and interpreting the scene and all of that. The camera is only as good as its operator and only as good as its lens. The lens and the operator are probably much more important than the actual camera itself. The other thing too is that the field is very crowded. I understand that. I mean, I love photography. That's why I got into it. In the United States, there is no legal requirement to be certified or to apprentice with anybody before you can start a business. So really anybody can buy a camera and go into business. And I've seen this many times. And what ends up happening is that these people will get hired. They'll go into a situation that they're really not prepared for. It's easy to imagine what you might do when you're behind the camera in your head. And then learning by mistakes on the job is really, it's not appropriate. And the last thing that you as a client want to do is pay for a mistake. You should never do that. Even if the photographer can fix those mistakes, it may take them hours, days. That bill may end up, you may be the one end up paying it. And the photographer may think that's normal. It's not. It's true that nowadays a photographer's particular vision is sort of what dictates what you as a client get. You go on Instagram, say, and you see this photographer has a particular style. Now, if that's the style and particular look that you want for your job, for what you need done, then that's great. But if you're someone that has a different vision, or you are going to want to have a different type of photography from job to job, say it's headshots one day, product shots another day, lifestyle photography another day, and maybe architectural or something. You can't expect someone who has one particular style to really be able to adapt and to accommodate all of those things without running into trouble. What you ideally want to do is find photographers that can accommodate the particulars of what the job asks for. So with that said, here are 5 things 5 signs that you may have hired the wrong photographer. I already talked about making mistakes. If they're making a lot of mistakes, out of focus, blurry, any number of things that they have to spend a lot of time fixing, like I said, you may pick up the tab for that. You don't want that. Another thing is communication. This is super important. I always say that my business is being a business person, and being a photographer is what I already do. Being able to communicate effectively is super important. You need to be dealing with someone that's going to be able to totally understand your ideas, communicate quickly and effectively, and this is going to save you time and money, and it's going to create a good, positive working relationship, which everyone should have. Number 3 is flexibility. If the photographer is inflexible and can't adapt to sort of unforeseen situations, this could be bad too. I show up to a shoot, I don't necessarily know what sort of curveballs are going to be thrown at me. Whether it's you imagine one thing, whether it's with the lighting or your ability to get up close to what you need, how you're able to light it, like where you can plug things into, all these things that you can't really count on can throw a curveball. And if you know how to shoot a certain way and then you have something that keeps you from being able to do that, you need to be able to adapt to that. And without the experience and the skill, then that's going to be a problem. Number 4, this is particular, but it's really important, is if the photographer and the photographs are very arbitrary about depth of field. And when I talk about that, obviously, like, depth of field is how much of the image from foreground to background is in focus or not. Depth of field, in a 2-dimensional world, depth of field kind of is everything as far as defining where to look in the picture, what to pay attention to, what to focus on. And it's not always about just throwing the camera into the blurriest background, possible all the time for a good photo. Because obviously, like with photography, with product photography, for instance, or with, say, real estate or architectural, you're going to want a very broad depth of field, foreground to background. It's really one of the most obvious telltale signs of an amateur photographer. And I see it a lot, and it's one of the first things that any photographer, professional photographer should know, or even aspiring professional photographer needs to know this right away. And number 5, pricing. If prices are arbitrary, if they're unable to itemize and break down sort of every dollar that you're paying, then you know that you're not sure that you're getting your money's worth, or that they could be shortchanging themselves even. At worst, they're overcharging you. To some degree, you need to be able to follow every dollar. So look for prices of similar work in the area. Make sure that those things are lining up, because if they're not, that may be a red flag. Ultimately, work with someone you trust and you can have a good relationship with. That's important. But communication, confidence, technical ability, these are important things when it comes to working consistently with someone, or when you really need to get something right and it's a big deal and you can't just depend on someone you know with a camera. Like I said, sometimes that's right, but when it's not, go with a pro. So I'm just wondering if I missed anything. Let me know. What are the things that you look for when you're hiring a photographer? Thanks for taking the time to watch the video. I hope to see you soon in the studio. Take care.